This is the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Kendall of the notaballerina.com travel blog. Every episode I'll share travel tales from several fellow travel lovers, and together we hope to entertain and inspire you, remind you of some of your own great travel experiences, and encourage you to hit the road again soon. Hello and welcome to episode 134 of the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. Today's episode is about location-independent work. You know, these people who travel the globe but are still making money at the same time. I'm a little bit envious, perhaps because I kind of missed the boat in some senses. There's still a future, but certainly when I was traveling and living abroad, it was back in the early 2000s, and location-independent work wasn't really a big thing. Because I guess the internet wasn't quite what it is today. So I taught English and I loved teaching English. It was a great way to see the world. But these days there's just so many possibilities. And I think one day when Mr. 9, my Mr. 8 is now Mr. 9. So when Mr. 9 is maybe like Mr. 19 or so, and I can kind of do what I want, I think I will be following in the footsteps of some of these digital nomads. Certainly a lot of my work I can do in a location-independent way. I don't have to be in a specific office or a specific place to do some of the work I do. So I can really imagine being a digital nomad, as they say, and doing some location-independent work one day. But at least today we get to speak to two people who are doing that right now, and it's really interesting to hear their stories. Before we get to them, I just want to give a little bit of a plug to Airbnb, because a lot of location-independent workers are using Airbnb, including today's. And if you go to my Airbnb link, which you can find at notaballerina.com/air, just AIR, you can get about $55 off your first booking. It depends on your currency, etc. But that's notaballerina.com/air, AIR, for a discount if you haven't used Airbnb yet, because I use it all the time and still love it. Now, my first guest today is Kim Yuhl. Kim is currently on a mission with her husband Wei to visit 60 countries before she turns 60. Kim, forgive me if I'm wrong, I should have double checked. I think that's within about 6 years or so. It might be 7, not sure. But anyway, they're aiming for 60 countries. They've both travelled a lot before, but they've kind of reset the counter to 0. And they're working while they're travelling. And as you'll hear, they're kind of busy, and they're also filming videos for their new venture, which is a YouTube channel called Nomading About. So we chatted extensively about working and long-term travel and some of the pros and cons of it. And Kim was actually in Guatemala City when we chatted, which I think is pretty cool, because from here in Western Australia, Guatemala seems pretty exotic. So Kim and I had a long and wide-ranging chat about her location-independent work at the moment.
Working while we're traveling, it's a very interesting concept. I actually have what most people would consider a full-time job. So the good thing is I can do it anywhere, and I'm really flexible on how I schedule my hours. So I am an editor for an online website. I also write, and as long as I stay atop of my planning, I can really schedule my work time and my travel time, my exploring time, to sort of coincide. So usually my week looks like I work full days on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, do very little exploring, but we do go out and turn different directions and meander into local areas and neighborhoods. But we're not out actually exploring, filming, or anything like that. We're sort of getting ideas for our films. I guess I'd consider that part of that piece. And then on Thursdays and Fridays, I just work part days, which gives us a good solid chunk of a long afternoon on those days to go out and explore, maybe film. And then on Saturdays and Sundays, we're almost always exclusively filming. Every now and then we'll take a Sunday off. and do nothing, and it's glorious.
Yeah, that does sound lovely.
It's exhausting to work, and it's exhausting to explore because there's just always so much I want to see and experience that you just can wear yourself out doing it.
It's hard. It's a hard balance, isn't it? But yes, I mean, you're in a wonderful situation to be able to do this, but it's still, the balance of being able to be doing your job and doing your videoing and exploring and traveling part of it, and trying to still have a break from all of that occasionally. Yeah. About how long do you stay in each place usually?
We're trying to stay 3 to 4 weeks in a place at a time so that we're not feeling the crunch to get out there and do stuff. Mm-hmm. So when we need a down day, we can take it and we don't feel guilty. Although I will say that on our last 2 days in every city, we're running around with our heads cut off because there's still so much we want to do. Mm-hmm. But we also sort of look at it as anything that is worth doing that we didn't get a chance to do, we can always come back. So far, we haven't really been anywhere that we just don't fall in love with. And I think the time spent in these places allows us to fall in love with them. Mm-hmm. It gives us the time to develop our relationship with that city. And I think that that's really, really what's magical about what we're doing, because it is hard work. It has taken a while to get a process in place that has worked to accommodate both my need for adventure and my need to pay the bills.
Yeah.
So I enjoy not moving around. Recently we were in Belize and we did move around. We moved every week while we were there. And it started out because we had a bad Airbnb. So we had to move. We moved out of that because I just couldn't stay the whole time there. Mm-hmm. So because of that, we were booking last minute, which means we couldn't really find a place to stay for a long period of time. And our son was coming to visit us for his spring break. So we hopped around, and then we spent 1 week in Flores, Guatemala at the start of our Guatemala journey. So for 4 weeks, we changed places every week, and it was exhausting.
I bet.
So it's really, really nice to be in Guatemala City now. We're here for 3 weeks. And, just to and we're sort of catching up, because when you move around that much, you also are losing time to work, time to edit videos, time to write blogs and all of that stuff. So we're sort of playing catch up now.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that travel time eats into all of that stuff. Probably, I feel like the longer you stay in a place, the more you, like you said, you fall in love with it more, and also the more things you find to do. So you kind of, I feel like that gives you more reasons to want to return one day. The longer you stay, the more you need to return.
It's absolutely true. I mean, when we first put Mexico City on our list, it was because I wanted to do the monarch butterfly migration, and it was the perfect time to go see that, which was spectacular. But I'm not a big city person, although I think I'm learning to be a city person. We fell in love with Mexico City, and honestly, I'm like, every place I go now, it's like, we could live there. We could move here. And it's just, there's so much to do. And we're finding the same thing in Guatemala. We do a little research before we get there. But just like I said, we go out, we turn different directions, we go into neighborhoods. When you do that, you find so much more to explore. And last night we were on a rooftop bar having a beer at sunset, celebrating the end of the workday. And we're like looking off into the distance and we're like, what's that? We need to go there. And it's just, amazing. And the funny thing is I think if we were to really take that sense of wonder around our hometowns, I bet we would find similar things as well. But being sort of foreign in this city, it gives us an excuse to sort of just, be whimsical and go play and turn in different directions and not follow our routines and explore when we see things we want to go into further.
That's so true, isn't it? And also the time pressure of knowing that you're only there for a few weeks, whereas like when you're in your hometown, you know, something you can do it any time. And of course, doing something any time turns into doing it no time. But
Exactly.
yeah, that's true. It's such a lovely way you phrase it about that sort of sense of wonder. And I know I'm guilty of not exploring my own hometown as I should. I'm getting better and better at it over the years. And every time, you know, people come to visit me from out of town, I'm better at showing them more cool places. But it's really easy to just settle into your old routines and not see anything else.
Absolutely.
Now, you've been working while traveling for like about a year now, haven't you? So what was the most difficult part about working while you're not in a home base?
You know, I think it's just initially it was really trying to establish a routine that wasn't necessarily a routine. You know, when you're in your home, you have all of your stuff. I had my big monitor. You have all the creature comforts of being able to work from home. Well, when you're traveling, first of all, you are creating a new routine because you are trying to incorporate adventure and exploration with an actual job. But you also don't have those creature comforts to help you through. So, you know, for instance, I'm in Guatemala now, and we called ahead because I didn't see a picture of a table and chairs or a desk in the pictures. You can see where this is going, right?
I can imagine.
So I emailed our host and I said, I am a full-time writer and I will be working while I'm there. Do you have a table and chairs that I can work at? And he responds, yes, we have a table and wooden benches. So I'm like, okay, that's fine. It's not perfect, and I'm picturing a table with the benches along the side, right?
Yeah, me too.
So no.
Oh no.
It is. So we get here and it's this half circle table that's against the wall, and it has these 3 wooden teeny tiny stools. So when you sit on them, the desk comes up to like literally between my chest and my chin, like that high. So I'm like, oh, this is a problem.
It's very hard to type from there.
So now they have couches. I moved the table to the end of one couch, and I'm sitting on the armrest of the couch.
Oh gosh!
During my work day, working on the table.
Oh no! The ergonomics are not perfect there.
No. So it's things like that, I think, that are the challenge. But then again, that's part of the adventure as well. So each city, I find I sort of have to adapt my routine to the city, because you find the quirkiness of the city. Here we have found that they have parades every day.
Oh, cool.
Like almost every day. So maybe not every day, but almost. So at 9:00, we've been here 10 days, and on 5 of them at 9:00 in the morning, you start hearing trumpets and marching bands, and we get up and we run downstairs to see what's going on. So I've learned now I either get up a little earlier and get everything situated so that I can take a break at 9:00 to go watch whatever parade is of the day, and and then come back and work some more. So it's just little quirkiness like that. When we were in Flores, I learned my room was not conducive to working in. So the owner of my Airbnb, we were staying in a restaurant. In the middle level, they had 3 apartments, and there was a restaurant below and a rooftop bar above. So the room wasn't conducive to work in, but the owner would open the rooftop bar up. So I knew I had until 2 p.m. before patrons started coming in to really get my work done. So every place has its own little unique routine that I have to create just depending on my surroundings.
I quite like the sound of that, because I it's kind of, you know, like when you're working, you know, for months and months in the same place, I don't always love that. Like I will work at my desk and I'll work at my dining table and I might work at a cafe just to get a bit of difference to my routine. And so you're kind of forced to have that difference every time you move on.
Yes, but when you first start and you're used to such structure, that kind of it took getting used to maybe more going with the flow versus, working this, and this. And I think that was the hardest part for me, was trying to put structure in a very non-structured world.
So Kim and Wei have been working in a location-independent method for over a year now, so you can see that Kim's already learnt quite a few things and figured out some ways to adapt to setting up a workplace in each of their new locations. My next guest today is Kendall Simmons, who has more recently become a location-independent worker with her interior design business. I was really interested when I got to know Kendall, because to me that doesn't seem an obvious business that you can take on the road. Kim's a writer. That seems clear to me. I can, easily imagine how that works out. So it was really interesting to chat to Kendall. And she also has just heaps of advice for anyone else who might be thinking of moving into a location-independent kind of lifestyle.
Just in the last month have I started working remotely in my design business. So I am an interior designer. I've done this for 11 years since I graduated from university. I own my own business. My husband and I are partners in our business for about 5 years now. And here's the thing, though, that's amazing. For the last year to 2 years, we have been actively working toward making our business as location independent as possible in order for us to be able to see more of the world. Life is short. We only have so many years. You never know how much time you have on this earth, and we want to be able to see as much of it as we possibly can. And we recognized that to be able to see and do what we want and also support ourselves, this is the real world, we have to make money, we were going to have to find a way to take our work on the road. And so the way that translated for me is something that I call e-design or online design. So I offer a service now where clients and I do the entire process over the internet, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, that is amazing.
And it's cool. It's really cool. So I have an online questionnaire people fill out. They pay via PayPal. They send me all of their inspiration images, their measurements of their spaces, what they want and need. And I send them back a full design that they then implement on their own, soup to nuts, down to the shopping list and the links that they click on to buy the stuff. It's cool, right? And how amazing is it that the internet allows me to do that? I mean,
it is amazing. That's right.
And so not everyone is a designer. That's very specific to me and my personal journey. And that's how I am able to do what I'm doing. But I love, once you go down that rabbit hole on the internet of other people's stories who are location independent, you will be shocked. I mean, people would be shocked at the things that people have found, like the ways people have found to be able to make money while they're on the road.
Oh, absolutely.
So people who are tax attorneys all of a sudden are tax attorneys for other location independent people and are filing tax returns from the road. Or
that's a great example.
It's amazing. So funny enough, we were recently looking for a new bookkeeper and accountant, and all of a sudden we're looking online and I'm like, well, I'll be darned if there aren't a lot of people who are living the lifestyle we are trying to live who are also, doing their businesses. So people who are accountants and attorneys, and not to mention people like artists. And the easy ones that make a ton of sense are people who are web developers and graphic designers and programmers. So pretty much any career that you are already trained for and have experience for, there is always a way to take that on the road. Some are going to be harder than others. But even if you're a teacher, all of a sudden, how can you create your own online course for your subject that you're an expert in, to where people can take your courses remotely online?
Or you can teach online. Some of my guests before have been teaching kids in China, but remotely. They were traveling around, a bit like you, month in different places and teaching. They just had to make sure they were, at their desk for a certain window of time each day with decent Wi-Fi, and they were teaching their classes of kids in China, which is amazing to me.
It is. And so I think that sometimes people tend to say, okay, well, this is my job though, and this is how I make money, and I have to go to the office every day in order to get this paycheck.
Mm-mm.
And there are certain things that it's just not the case for. So a great example is a friend of mine, amazing girl who is a physical therapist. She has a doctorate in physical therapy. There are other people that she works with who have doctorates in occupational therapy and those things. There are travel occupational therapy and travel physical therapy programs that people can be a part of where they go all over the place for certain stints of time in each location. There are travel nursing jobs even.
No way.
Where, yes, there are. You would be shocked at what is open to you once you actually start looking. And then one other thing, if you just cannot find a way for your profession to go on the internet, there are things out there that maybe this isn't 100% universal, right? Like there may be jobs that you just can't take online. So there are programs like Workaway, for example, where you don't necessarily make a paycheck, but you get to go to another country and work in exchange for your room and board and food and general expenses, to where maybe you're not making money to put in the bank, but you're breaking even and can see another part of the world while you're doing it.
Yeah, and have a really different experience to just normal travel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that enriches your like human life experience.
Definitely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So like my cousin Jackie right now, I don't know if she'll hear this or not, but she is working in the Netherlands as we speak with a charity that is working with refugees coming out of Syria and other Middle Eastern countries that are trying to assimilate into the European system. She is doing that right now through Workaway. And I want to say her stint with the program is like 3 months long.
Wow.
But here's the great thing. Her degree from the US and her experience is with, counseling and that type of thing, to where she is still using her social work experience. But even if she's not technically getting paid for it, she's still using her area of expertise and also being located in Europe at the same time. So
yeah, what a great experience.
It's really worth it to explore that aspect as well, to where you wouldn't be able to do that indefinitely and not make any income. But if you're looking for a getaway and you just need a change of pace, or you feel really passionately about a certain thing that's happening in the world and you want to go help, there are ways to do that through programs like Workaway, where you don't necessarily have to be getting paid physical dollars or, physical currency.
Yeah, exactly.
But because all of your expenses are covered, you get to do it.
Yeah.
Cool. So anyway, I would just tell people where there's a will, there's a way. And just sometimes it requires some creativity. It requires you to be like, hey, what skills do I have that people would be willing to pay me money for that I haven't really dug deep into? And I think people would be surprised by what they can come up with.
Yeah, well, honestly, when I first read about what you do, to me, interior design struck me as something that is hard to do remotely, but then you explained it perfectly. It makes perfect sense to me. It's definitely possible, and obviously it's working that you are able to do this in a location-independent way. So, yeah, I think you just really have to first of all, our technology these days is so much better. There's so many different possibilities. Just having kind of an open mind and, think a bit outside the box. Probably everybody can find some kind of skill set that they can work remotely and then travel while they do it.
I think so. And to go back to the native English speakers topic as well that we touched on earlier, honestly, if you are a native English speaker, even if you have no teaching background, there are so many markets out there all over the world where there is a job for you purely as an English as a second language teacher or tutor. where all that it requires is a small certification, and people are desperate for your help and your skill to help them learn English as well. So even if that is the only skill you can come up with that you could sell on the internet, it's a valuable skill. It's really valuable. And I would encourage everyone not to downplay that. Anything from, creative pursuits, online web pursuits. And another thing we haven't talked about is starting a blog.
Yes,
and being
exactly.
able to monetize that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a whole nother avenue that people can take.
Yeah.
Look at you, right? You have this amazing blog.
Yeah, exactly.
You have this satellite podcast that you're giving people a wealth of knowledge and information, and there are ways to monetize that as well.
Exactly.
So I would say if you're desperate to get on the road, there is nothing that should really be holding you back. There is always a way to support yourself.
Absolutely.
If you're willing to really get in the weeds and figure out, okay, like, how do I make this happen? You can do it.
So heaps of interesting tips and advice there. But I think one of the most important parts was something Kendall said really early on in our chat, that she's been working as an interior designer for over a decade. But in the last sort of 1 to 2 years, she said they'd been, actively working towards making that a location independent business. So I think it's pretty hard to do something just at the drop of the hat and take off, but to plan ahead, there's so many possibilities, as Kendall said. And I know that Kim had the same approach, that, she knew ahead of time this is what they wanted to do. And, she created work, or, made sure she was working in a way that lent itself to traveling around the world at the same time as working. And I think that that's a really good lesson for all of us. And also, as Kendall says, nearly any job, there's a version of it that you could do and travel at the same time. She gave some amazing examples, which to me, I thought that's impossible. And of course, it's not impossible, because really not much is impossible these days, is it? So that was a really interesting chat to have. And I must admit, I went off and looked up the Workaway site, which Kendall mentioned a couple of times. There's so many really, really cool possibilities there. It's kind of, work a few hours a day in a place in exchange for, board and, food and a room to stay in and stuff like that. But so many cool places, all sorts of different situations. I actually recommend going to have a look yourself, because I got really excited about all sorts of things I might do one day. So, oh dear, this is not the right episode sometimes, is it for me? I feel like I have to, I really feel the need to just take off right now. But, I'm back here in Perth and I have to do some of my other kind of work tomorrow. So I will stay here and, my son has to go to school, all those things. But anyway, one day. So thank you very, very much for listening to episode 134 of the Thoughtful Travel podcast. Don't forget, if you haven't tried Airbnb yet, you should. Go to notaballerina.com/air, AIR, and you can get $55 off your first Airbnb booking. I've had some cool Airbnbs around the world. You can also see Kim, our first guest, at nomadingabout.com. And I do highly recommend her YouTube channel, which is called Nomading About as well. She and her husband make really, really fun and kind of, what's the right word, real videos. Like, they're not, flashily produced kind of tour guides to a city. They're just, real people in real places. And especially their series of China was, you got to watch the panda one and the snacks one. There's lots of cool ones. So I encourage you to go to Nomading About on YouTube as well. And also a big thank you to Kendall, and you can find her at kendallsimmons.com, which is, especially if you want an interior designer who's also traveling, that's where you can find out her work. And I'm also going to put a link in the show notes to Workaway, which is workaway.info. So have some fun looking around there. If you are aspiring to have a location independent lifestyle, or you do already, or have anything to say about it whatsoever, come along and say it in our Facebook group. It is called Thoughtful Travellers, and you can find it just by searching for Thoughtful Travellers in Facebook and asking to join. I'll also leave a link in the show notes. And all of this info will be in the show notes, and for this episode, you can find them at notaballerina.com/134. Thank you again very, very much for listening. This has been another episode of the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. Show notes and other information are at notaballerina.com/podcast. Join me again soon for another chat about why we travel. Bye for now.